Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is part two. We're discussing Ogauge trains up on the corridor. I just made a video 10 minutes. Okay, I'm trying to find something online about this track. Okay, just give me a moment here. These guys don't want to let me find what I'm trying to look for. This thing is shrouded in mystery, man. This 027 track, this Ogauge track, which they call an 027 track, is the whole legacy of Lionel. Okay, that's what they was running their post-war trains on. They was getting down with that gauge track. The one with the brown ties, nice layouts. Okay, I want to explain something to you guys about fast track. Okay, fast track comes in 031 curved track sections, 036 curved track sections. They got two more, than the last one is 072 curve, switch track curve track section. So just like how fast track is made, you have a 031 switch track and an 031 curve. You have a 036 switch track, a 031 curve, and then there's two other curves. I keep forgetting them. The last one is 072 switch track and 072 curve. That's the same thing with the what they call an 027 track, which is Ogauge track. You don't have a 031 curve track section. You have a 027 curve track section with a 027 curve. You also have a 042 switch track with a 042 curve. You have a 054 switch track with a 054 curve. You also have a 072 switch track with a 072 curve. Now check this out. We can't trust none of the history about Lionel, okay? Everything is upside down. Just like I told you, they call it 027 track, 020 track Ogauge. That's Ogauge. They call it 027 track when it's not. And also, I bought an engine, Lionel's 120th anniversary train, F3 Lion Chief Plus 2.0. On the box, it says minimum curve 031. Now, why would they put on the box minimum curve 031 when the train could go around 027? I made a video of that train that they said couldn't go around. The minimum curve was 031. I've been running that train for almost 3 years on 027 curves. So why would they make a statement like that? Okay, that is incorrect. And why is the toy train community confused as to what 027 track is? All you have to do is make a video and explain it. That toy train, classic toy train, he could have broke that down. He didn't. Okay? He didn't break that down because he wanted to keep you guys in darkness, and I told you there was a prohibition on those switches. You will find evidence of a 054 switch track with curve that goes with those brown ties. You will find evidence on that online, but you won't find any evidence of a 072 switch track. You'll find evidence of a 072 curve. The fact that you could find a 072 curve is proof that the 072 switch track existed. Okay, just like fast track, they make a 072 switch track, they make a 072 curve. They're not going to make a 072 curve in fast track, and they don't make a 072 switch track. The same thing with that track that they call an 027 track, okay? That you cannot find any 072 switch tracks, but you can find an 072 curve. Now that's pretty strange, because that track I'm telling you that they call an 027, that is the legacy of Lionel. What they call an 027 track, and that old scale track, that's the only track they was using in the 1930s. They didn't have no fast track, they didn't have no Atlas track, they didn't have no MTH track, they didn't have none of that track. You was running trains, you was running on what I have, which they call an 027, which is not. They're putting the stigma in your mind that that 027 track is 27-inch diameter maximum. That's it. You can't run, certain trains can't run on 27-inch diameter, okay? When that's incorrect. When the diameter of that track is 72 inches, because they have a 72-inch switch track, and they have a 72-inch, a 072 curve, and they have a 072 switch track. Now, why am I doing all this talking about this? Because my top level is 027 track. And what I did on the top level with that, what I did on the top with that Ogauge track, I got to get that 027 out of my head. If I would have did that same track pattern, what I did in the yard, upstairs, on the upper level, on the bottom level with that fast track, it would have cost me like $1,200, $1,300, because each switch track of the fast track is $100. But I did that whole yard, cost me like $450, because what they call an 027 track, those switches, keeps using that word just so you guys understand with me, it's much more cheaper. And those switches are good, okay? The only problem that you have with those switches that if you're going slow, very, very slow, it will cut off. Certain engines, and not all the switch tracks, certain of them. But they're good tracks, good switch tracks. They're like 50, 60 years old, and they're still working. Okay? They're still working. We don't know about that with the fast track. If you're going to have a piece of fast track for 40, 50 years. We don't know that yet. Okay? There's the moon over there. I thought I saw the moon over there. Oh, yeah, the moon is over there. Okay. So, the gauge track that I got on top, the profile with the brown ties, you can build anything with that. It's more versatile. You can cut the rails and do all type of stuff that you can't do with that fast track. You see that yard I did on the second level with that gauge track? I would have to cut some track of that fast track. And that fast track is not easy to cut like that gauge track that I got on the top with the brown ties. Okay? So now, we cannot trust any of the history that they have written down for Lionel. Okay? Because first of all, that track that they call an 027 track, which is Ogauge track, that's the legacy of Lionel. Okay? These two tracks right here, this is the legacy of Lionel. This is what they was running all those big engines on. Like I told you, this comes in 072, switch tracks and curves. This come in 072 switch tracks and curves. This is what they was using. This is the Lionel legacy. So now, when you take away from the Lionel legacy by getting rid of the 054 switches, the 072 switches, you're a threat to the toy train hobby. Okay? You're not for this toy train hobby, man. And you got people in the dark that these switches don't exist anymore. This is the legacy, these two switches of Lionel. This is what they was using in the early 1900s. Running all those nice engines that you guys like, that's worth much, much money now. It was running it on this track. But they have a problem, they have a big problem with this track, Lionel. They don't want you using those curves. It gets deeper than that. They want you to buy the fast track. And that's indicated in the report as to why they discontinued this track. There's no reason why they should have discontinued this track. This is part of the legacy, Lionel legacy. And it's not that expensive. They could have kept making this track. Okay? So they come out with a reason that they stopped making this track, and they call it 027, continuing on to confuse people in their report just from Lionel. They stopped making 027 track, and this is not an 027 track. This is Ogauge track. It's Ogauge track, right? It's because their bigger engines couldn't get around the tight curves. Now, that's untrue, because like I told you, these come in 072 curves and 072 switches, which I cannot find. I would love to have one. You'll find evidence of the 054 switch. Actually, in my last